Before we get started, okay, everyone online can hear okay? And we're recording. Okay. So welcome everyone to the Oregon Department of Energy's public information meeting for the Sunset Solar and Storage Projects. Sunrise. My name is Sarah Esterson. I'm the Senior Policy Advisor at the Department of Energy Siting Division, and this is Kate Sloan. I just want to introduce a few more members of our team. Nancy Hatch is our Administrative Assistant. We have Dwayne Kilsdonk and Egan Bowl, who are our compliance officers. They're critical to our team, and we also have a council member from the Energy Facility Siting Council, Miss Katie Imes. Thank you so much for being here. And we have the Pacificor team and Tetra Tech. We'll let them introduce themselves when we get over to their portion of the presentation. But we just want to thank everyone for coming. We have a really great time getting out of Salem, leaving the office and being in the location where these projects are being proposed. And most importantly, being able to hear what your concerns are, your interests, your comments on this project. So thank you so much. And yeah, I'll hand it over to Kate.
All right, good evening, everybody. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody here in the room. Our council member, thank you for coming, and the Pacificor team that is participating and attending in this meeting. My name is Kathleen Sloan. I'm the Senior Siting Analyst for the Department of Energy, who's been assigned to basically chauffeur this notice of intent for the Sunrise Solar and Battery Storage projects. As it moves through the notice of intent phase in preparation of a preliminary application for site certificate. So just really quickly as an overview, I'm going to give a very brief overview of our process and what we do and how we do it. And then I'm going to turn it over to the applicant team. They're going to give a presentation on the proposed facility. They will turn it back over to me and we will open it up to public comment. And we're going to run the public comment, people in the room, people on the WebEx, people on the phone in that order. So just next slide, slide. So just an overview of our meeting that I just told you all about. Next slide. Okay, so why are we here? We're here to talk about the Sunrise Solar facility and battery storage projects. As you can see on the map, it's located just north and northeast of Ione. It's almost a 7,000 acre site boundary. It's on privately owned EFU, exclusive farm use zone land. It's located, to be located entirely within Morrow County. This map is from the notice of intent. At the bottom of this page, this presentation will be recorded and also the PDF of this slideshow will be put on the project webpage. But I did want to just talk a little bit about our online mapping resources. There's a link at the bottom of this slide. It will be an active link when I post the PDF. But we have mapping tools for siting that are interactive if you're interested in finding out more about a proposed facility and the resources of concern that might be within an analysis area that we look at. And then also in the notice of intent itself, there are more detailed maps on the site boundary and the tax lots within it. So if you're interested in more information about the site location, there are lots of resources available for you to find out more. Next slide. So the facility is proposed solar arrays, solar modules, and their various and sundry required components such as posts and trackers, collector lines, inverters, transformers. There will be up to 800 megawatts capacity battery storage system. They're looking at more than one possibility of a generation tie line that will interconnect a 230 kV line to an existing 500 kV line or a new 500 kV line. I'm sorry, I believe that's the B2H line. And then a new operations and maintenance building the access roads, perimeter fencing, and temporary laydown in construction areas. So this is the facility we're reviewing. So a little bit about the meeting. This is a public informational meeting. It is not a hearing. So any comments that are made are not official on the record. They wouldn't apply towards a contested case in an application. This really is a meeting intended to inform the public that we have a notice of intent filed for a proposed facility. We hold these meetings in the vicinity of the proposed facility, which is why we're here in Boardman. And then basically open it up to the public to ask questions, make comments. That those comments are to help inform both the department and also the applicant in citing concerns, issues that they might want to consider or need to consider as they move through the application process. So we do ask if you have any questions or comments to wait till we get to the public comment period and just be nice and be respectful. Everybody always is, so it's kind of a no-brainer. Next slide. So who are we? The staff that Sarah introduced, we're all with the Oregon Department of Energy Siting Division. We work in support of the Energy Facility Siting Council. As we noted, we have a member of our council here present, Council Member Imes. We basically work as support staff to council. Council is the one that makes a decision up or down on whether or not to grant a site certificate, to approve an application for site certificate, and they're the decision makers. Our role as a department and as siting staff is to really work the proposal through environmental review with our standards and the applicable laws that we have to work through, and then make recommendations. So we make recommendations in our draft proposed orders to council. Council is ultimately the one that will make a decision, and that decision is made when they make a decision on a final order. So what we do is it's considered a consolidated permitting review because we work between other state agencies. So if there are applicable laws or permits that can be incorporated into our review and become jurisdictional under our site certificate, it's a way to streamline the environmental review process and kind of keep everything centralized. And it also, a big part of our review is to coordinate with local governments, tribes, counties, and state reviewing agencies, which are our partner agencies within the state. So like Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, Department of Environmental Quality. These are all the other state agencies that have roles and responsibilities, and we coordinate with them. Next slide. So why is this facility under FSEC jurisdiction? FSEC, which is the Energy Facility Siting Council, they have jurisdiction over certain types of energy facilities in the state. So for a solar photovoltaic generation facility, there's basically 3 tiers that are set by land use kind of criteria and number of acres. And so because this proposed facility it might qualify as subpart I, subpart double I, but I think most definitely will qualify under the third one, which is that it's over 3,840 acres. So it's definitely larger than that. It's going to require a site certificate from the Energy Facility Siting Council. Anything less than the standard would just run directly through the county. Okay, next slide. Okay. All right, so when I said we have standards and we do review, these are the 16 standards that we do review for. So each set of standards has a set of rules, it has a set of criteria. When an applicant submits a preliminary or complete application, they have to demonstrate, we're an evidence-based process, so they have to demonstrate that they can meet each of these standards. And so we as a department, when we get these applications and materials, we will evaluate all of these materials that they submit as an applicant to demonstrate that they can meet a standard. And then we evaluate whether or not that material actually, we feel that we will recommend whether or not that meets a standard. So anyways, these are our standards. Each one of these has a separate rule and a whole bunch of more information and requirements that come with it. Again, a lot of this information is available on our project web pages and our agency website. So if you're interested to learn more about any of these, there's a lot of information available. to think about. Next slide. So this slide is basically kind of a graphic of our site certificate process. So as you can see, we're at the far left end of the slide. We are in the box of red at the notice of intent phase. There are 7 chevrons across the top that get you to the end, which is the final order and a site certificate decision made by council. So here we are, the applicant has submitted a notice of intent, which is just exactly that. It's a notice of intent to apply, to submit a preliminary application for a site certificate. We issue a public notice. We schedule a public meeting, which is this meeting right here. We post things on the web page, make the notice of intent available, and we've opened it up for public comment. And that notice of intent was received on February 27th, and we opened up with the public notice on, I'm blanking, but it was in March. I want to say March 26th, because it seems like it was just about a month ago, that we issued the public notice, and that opened the public comment period. The public comment is still open. It will be open for another month. So it closes in May, May 23rd. So basically, the purpose of this is just to make people aware of what is being proposed and solicit and collect the comments from the public. And what I'm doing is the siting analysis. I'm also doing the reviewing agency coordination, which is the local governments, the state agencies and tribes. And I am going to wrap all this up in what is called the project order, which is the next chevron over. And so we prepare a project order out of all of this, more or less scoping out of the notice of intent phase. And the project order will lay out the requirements of what needs to be in the application. And it will also incorporate the summaries of all the comments and all the input that we received along the way. And then that is basically kind of the punch list that the applicant, Pacific Corp, will use to prepare their preliminary application. So when the application is submitted, we go through a completeness review. So that's the difference between the little p ASC and the ASC. It's just one is preliminary, one is deemed complete. We will issue another public notice, and we will have another information meeting once we have a complete application. At this time, we'll have exhibits. We'll have all the studies, all the reports, all the documentation that comes with the preliminary application. And so we go out to reviewing agencies and the public for comments on what's in the application, what are the studies that's sufficient. And then we prepare the draft proposed order. When we issue the draft proposed order, we're going to issue another public notice. We're going to open it up for public comment, and we're going to schedule a public hearing. A public hearing is different than a public meeting. That's actually comments on the record. If you want to participate in a contested case later down the road, your comments have to be made on the record at the hearing by the close of the hearing, by the close of the public comment period on the draft proposed order. So it's an important thing to know. We go through council review of that draft proposed order. They will make recommendations to us, make comments, and out of that, we will prepare a proposed order. We will issue that proposed order with another notice. At this point, it's not open to public comment because we've already summarized everybody's public comments. That's what the difference between the draft proposed order and the proposed order are. And then we go back out to reviewing agencies one more time, and we'll issue that proposed order. At that point, unless it goes to contested case, like the department's work, a lot of the work is done at that point. We've issued the proposed order. We don't anticipate making changes to it. Council can make changes to it, but we at that point feel like the department feels like it's done. And we will issue the notice of proposed order and the opportunity to request a contested case. If there are no contested case requests, and even if there are, we will then still take the whole shebang to council, and they will either have a contested case hearing and then make a decision on whether or not to approve a final order, or they might kick it back. There's things that can happen between the proposed order and the final order, but at some point, council will make an up or down decision on that final order, and if they approve it, they will issue a site certificate. So that's the end of that process. But anyways, it's complicated, and this process can take 2 years. So if you're wondering what the timeline is, we're at the very beginning. The applicant themselves has 2 years from the notice of intent to even submit a preliminary application. So just realize you could forget all about this project. It could come back in another 2 years and you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember this project. So they're long timelines and they're just things that to keep in mind. Next slide. So I thought I took this slide out. Let's skip it because it's redundant of the slide I already talked about. So this one is just a graphic that explains how the notice of intent study areas are set. They're set by rule. So when the notice of intent comes in, there are these set study areas that are assigned to each particular standard for analysis areas. And basically what the important part at this point is they can get bigger, they can get smaller. A lot of that depends on the input that we get. Like if we get significant comments about, and it has to be justified either way, but if there are comments made that can justify making or there's a reason why an analysis area needs to be bigger or smaller, these are things that the department can consider. But at the notice of intent phase, those study areas are set, and then they basically can go up or down from that. And then in that project order, we're going to outline what those analysis areas will be. And typically they're the same. Sometimes they change. So, but they vary depending on what the standard is. Okay, so with our reviewing agencies and special advisory groups, our special advisory groups are the local governments that are, the facility is within the jurisdiction. So it's Morrow County Board of Commissioners is the special advisory group for this facility. And we do coordinated research outreach with them, ask them to help identify applicable substantive criteria for land use, concerns about public services. We're really interested in the permitting, like what are the permits that they need to build a facility in that county, and then which, if any, would be run through the site certificate, things that we need to be aware of at the local government level so that we can incorporate it where it makes sense into our review process. Next slide. As I said, for land use, it's because, and Sarah can speak better to this than I, but because this is a large solar facility and the way that the land use rules work in Oregon, this will require a Goal 3 exception to be granted by council. So in order for that part of our review, that's going to be a big part of the land use review that we have to work through for a project of this size, where you're going to need that Goal 3 exception. But when the applicant submits their application, they can choose whether they want to do the land use approval through the county or through council. In the notice of intent, they've indicated that they plan to seek the land use approval through council. They can change that up until the point that they submit the application. But it's a decision made by the applicant at the time of submittal. But at this point, it appears it's going to run through council. So it would be council that would be asked to grant this Goal 3 exception. Next slide. So these are just kind of some of the examples of kind of like what I would say, some of the issues that come up in the comments that we receive from the public in particular, where maybe they have concerns or maybe there's a particular topic that they're particularly interested in, and how that may relate to an applicable cancel standard, one of those 16 standards that we have to evaluate. And why I have this slide here is really to emphasize for the people that want to comment on the project is that in our public comment process, it's really important that you tie your comments to an applicable standard. So rather than saying, I'm worried about the fish, you need to say, I'm under threatened and endangered species, these fish are endangered, I'm worried about these fish, and I think you need to consider it. So there's ways that you can phrase your comments so that they actually tie to a specific standard. And so that's just kind of a tip for the public as to how best to participate in our public comment process. Okay, next slide. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Tim with Pacificor. So Tim Hemstreet is the lead with Pacificor, and he is going to do the slides for the facility. And then when he's done with it, he'll turn it back over to me.
All right, thank you. I'm going to first just introduce our team, and then we'll go through the slides that way. So my name is Tim Hemstreet. I'm Vice President of Resource Development for Pacificor, and we are a local utility in this area. We're very excited about being your local service provider. For some of you, at least, perhaps in the room, we don't serve all of the local area, but we are excited about the ability to continue to provide that service with a project of this type. This is Lori Wyman. She's our Regional Business Manager. This is Omar. He's in our communications group. And this is our consultant, Carrie, with Tetra Tech. So I'm going to hand it over to Lori, and she's going to give a bit more background about Pacificor, and then we'll kind of hand it off among our team here, covering various topics. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us here. Again, my name's Lori Wyman, Regional Business Manager. I'm located in Pendleton, out of our Pendleton base. And we'll just dive right into the slides. So I'm not sure who's operating them. There we go. Okay. So Pacificorp is the largest grid operator in Western United States, serving the needs of nearly 2 million customers. We encompass two familiar names, Pacific Power, which serves our customers in Oregon, Washington, and California, and Rocky Mountain Power, which serves our customers in Utah, Idaho, and Wyoming. Pacific Power and Rocky Mountain Power came together as Pacificorp in 1989. Next slide. Here's a glimpse of the Pacificorp by numbers. We serve energy needs over 2 million customers, as I mentioned previously, which is growing, and span a territory of 140,000 square miles. Our 17,000 transmission lines and 65,000 miles of distribution lines are connected to approximately 1,200 substations and 600,000 service transformers. We own over 1.1 million power poles, which is quite a bit. And we pride ourselves in that. We are really thankful, and we enjoy serving all the customers that we do. We own over 11,000 megawatts of generation capacity from diverse mix of thermal, hydro, solar, and wind resources. And now I'm going to give it back to Tim.
All right, thank you, Lori. As Lori said, we own currently over about 3,300 megawatts of renewable and non-carbon generating capacity. Some of our example projects throughout the West, in Oregon, just a little bit down the road, our leading Juniper project, a 100 megawatt wind project. Down in Lakeview, Oregon, a 2 megawatt black cap solar project. And then a lot of our wind additions kind of in the late 2000s, and now more recently in the late late teens, I guess, and early 20s have been out in Wyoming. Those are some of our recent projects. So I think we've got, currently we have under construction 590 megawatts of new wind that's heading into Wyoming. That's going to be serving our customers later this year. Washington, Goodnoe Hills, just across the river, we saw on our drive out from Portland, our Goodnoe Hills project, 94 megawatts, and out by Dayton, Washington, Marengo 1 and 2. And a wind project, although we don't serve customers in Montana, we do have transmission into Montana, and a Pryor Mountain wind project of 240 megawatts. So we have a diverse mix of resources. This kind of highlights our non-carbon and renewable portfolio. We have a lot of experience with renewable energy projects. We don't have a lot of experience with solar projects other than our black cap solar project down in Lakeview. We have a lot of contracted solar projects that we bring into our system to serve our customers, but we're excited about the opportunity to, with some kind of changes in accounting, I don't want to go into, we are excited about the opportunity for owning solar projects, and this is one of our biggest ones we're developing currently. Okay, next slide. So the Sunrise Solar and Energy Storage Project, it's on about 7,000 acres just south of us here It's privately owned land by one landowner just northeast of Ione. We're planning on an 800 megawatt of solar panels paired with an equivalent capacity of energy storage. And we plan to interconnect that to future transmission that is planned for the area. The project is currently sited on dryland crop use, the ranch that we're planning on. And so it's been cultivated for decades. And in that respect, we anticipate kind of fewer wildlife concerns than we would have if we were, not working on a cultivated area. A lot of economic development would be associated with this project. During construction, we anticipate 200 people during the duration of construction, and then post-construction operations employing about 10 to 20 people directly at the facility. Related, the facility is actually involved in the project. I mentioned the battery energy storage system that's currently planned to be lithium ion. We will see as technology evolves whether that might change to a longer duration storage alternative. We will have a collector substation to staff the folks that would be operating and maintaining this facility. We anticipate an O&M building. And then a generation tie, it's currently shown that kind of light green, bluish line. We don't exactly know yet where that gen tie line will go as we go through the interconnection process and work with the transmission provider, which in this case is Pacificor. We will better understand what's possible for interconnecting into planned future transmission and get a better sense of where that gen tie line must go. And so that's just shown as one example, I think, for where we've requested interconnection, but that may change over time. Other aspects of the project would be site access and service roads. We will need to be able to develop new roads in the project area to maintain and install the solar panels, as well as the battery energy system. Perimeter fencing and gates. We anticipate kind of site control and making sure we are isolating areas of the new substation for the project and the battery facilities from the public. And then temporary construction areas, laydown areas, temporary storage for project components during construction that would be reclamated kind of after the project is built. Thanks. Next slide, please. And then future surveys and studies. I think I'll hand this over to Carrie. Yeah, so Carrie can cover this.
Okay, can you hear me? Great. Okay, so the Pacificor team has initiated study plans and engagement with various stakeholders and reviewing agencies to initiate these studies and surveys that will address the standards that Kate was discussing earlier. Starting with cultural resources, there'll be pedestrian surveys. Pacificor will work closely with the tribes before getting on the ground and initiating those surveys. There'll be an agricultural and socioeconomics impact study that will be assessed and incorporated into the Goal 3 exception request that is incorporated into the application. A glint and glare analysis and view shed analysis will be conducted to assess the scenic impacts to scenic resources. Pacificor will work very closely with local emergency resources to develop a coordination plan and emergency plan for during construction and operations. Biological studies will include wildlife and habitat, rare plants, raptor nets surveys, noxious and invasive weeds, and wetlands and waters. All of those are to determine what impacts might occur to these biological resources from the project facilities and then the mitigation that would be associated with those impacts, and working closely with the related agencies, the reviewing agencies that govern those biological resources. A traffic impact assessment will be conducted, and a soil and geotech investigations will be conducted as well. All of this is incorporated into the application to address the standards. Next slide. And as mentioned, also previously by Kate, it is required to work very closely with the stakeholders and various reviewing agencies. This is not necessarily a comprehensive list of all of them, but it is a long list, and Pacific Corp has already started engaging specifically with the tribes, Morrow County, and a lot of the state agencies listed here as well. And that will be ongoing throughout the life of the project. Next slide. Back to you, Tim.
Yeah, so I think important topics, certainly to make any project successful. These are kind of key considerations. We heard from the county just around coordination with the city of Ione being being nearby to the project. That was a good comment to make sure we're coordinating broadly across the community and not just necessarily with the local county, because the project can have impacts across those borders. Stakeholder engagement processes like this, where we're really trying to get the community a sense of what the project would look like, its impacts. We know projects of this scale can have a lot of impacts in terms of housing during construction, and then throughout the life cycle of a project as we look toward perhaps changed use patterns or impacts on recreation opportunities that we want to make sure we mitigate with new development. Socioeconomic impacts. Again, just employment impacts on disadvantaged communities. We want to look through as we consider the siting of this project and how we might develop it and fit it into the local use patterns that will be helpful to the community. Agricultural sector impacts, certainly with the Goal 3 exception, we know that putting solar panels on land that's currently cultivated has an impact on agriculture, as well as businesses that are dependent on that economic activity. So we'll be looking into that. Economic support, development, and employment opportunities, really just trying to get a better sense of what this project would really do for employment in the area, property taxes, other things that are important in terms of making sure there's considered decisions about a project of this scale. Ongoing maintenance, we know as an operator of a large generation fleet, we have a lot of experience in terms of maintaining projects of this scale, projects of this type. While we don't have a lot of solar, like I mentioned, we do have a fleet of hydro, which wasn't mentioned on our slide. That's kind of an oversight of our 1,000 megawatts of hydro resources that are coming through the hydro team, through the company. That's certainly a big oversight to not include that in our renewable slide. But we've got a lot of these projects are really located in a lot of rural areas that are important to find the right way to service those and maintain those in communities that don't necessarily have infrastructure for that purpose when these projects first get built. I think fire and emergency response, certainly, we've all seen the news lately about the impacts that can come with batteries. In terms of some of the projects that were designed earlier, that's certainly going to be a consideration as we develop a project that includes a battery component, making sure that we're coordinating well with the local fire and emergency responders. And then wind control and erosion, one of the benefits of solar projects is you really don't have to change the landscape. You really can site these projects and even think of down the road, if they're no longer needed, pulling them out in a way that really doesn't disturb the landscape and can revert that land use back to what it originally was, if that's an ultimate end of a project. But certainly during the project development and operation, wind control and erosion, we will be impacting the local area. So we want to make sure that as we do that, we're not introducing noxious weeds or having erosion concerns. Environmental considerations, just broadly, the threatened and endangered species. We want to look and make sure that we're considering all those. We've had some comments from ODF&W already about species to keep an eye out for in the planned area. And so we'll be having that as part of our review. And then just broadly, potential wildlife impacts that can come with projects of the scale is something we'll also be considering in our process. So we want to make sure that with all these bullets, these are part of the considerations around making an informed decision through the FSEC process and making sure that we're gathering the information necessary to answer any questions about the potential impacts in these areas. So that'll be kind of our process over the next year or two as we get through the studies that are needed and as we get public input from the public as well as the agencies about what information is necessary to make an informed decision about a project of this type consistent with state and local requirements. So I think that might be it. Oh, milestones. I think we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but I think this is just a bit about the steps we're going to go through over the next year or two. We have field surveys to conduct around vegetation, threatened endangered species, again, wildlife use patterns, conceptual designs that will take into account, drainage patterns on the landscape, where we might find areas to avoid from a wildlife perspective, looking at soils and drainage and erosion to make sure we're not creating, new challenges in those areas as we site panels and develop a layout. Optimized access. We really want to minimize the amount of new roads that we would need to create, and so we'll be looking at how to site the project and how to site the arrays in locations that can reduce the amount of access requirement we need. Design for operation and production. Obviously, we want to make sure facilities of this type produce as much energy as they're intended to, and so that goes into our siting, obviously, as well as making a choice around where do we site an O&M building to be, frankly, just if we can do that in a way that reduces our amount of time to get to the various places on the project, that can be beneficial. Some of our wind projects, it can take 20 minutes to drive to a wind turbine from an O&M building, and that can increase our downtime. And so we want to make sure that we're citing our operations and maintenance in the best place to keep the project online as much as possible. And then ultimately, we'll submit an application for a site certificate. That submittal timing is going to be determined by how quickly we can get through those various studies, really what the public and the agency feedback is about what we really need to look at to put together a responsive application. And then the completion of area transmission upgrades is probably the most fundamental, aspect of the timing of this project. A project of this scale, 800 megawatts, is going to require, new area transmission upgrades, perhaps, Boardman to Hemingway, if not Boardman to Hemingway, other, local transmission. And so that will drive the timing of when a project of this scale could come online, is the timing of those local transmission improvements. And then the construction of the project may occur in phases. We do have 4 separate interconnection requests at 200 megawatts. So there is the potential to scale this project over time as kind of local demands for power increase. We may be executing the project in different phases with those 4 separate interconnections. So we're not yet sure how that will shape up, but that will really depend on the timing of when the project comes online. I think that might be it. So appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, so you've seen this slide already, but I just wanted to remind people where we're at. We're at the very first step. And we're going to move on. I'm going to go through a couple of resources and then we're going to open it up to public comment. So I'm going to talk a little bit. We have a lot of ways to comment. You can email comments. You can comment on our comment portal. You can make public comments tonight orally. We have comment cards in the back. If you want to make a comment, we ask that you fill one out. And there's some good links. All of this information is available on our most awesome webpage. And each project has a webpage. Anything you would ever want to know about siting or rules or process or projects are all available through the links on our webpage. I really encourage people to take advantage of it because there's a wealth of information and a lot of really good resources if you're interested about what we do and why we do it and you want to comment or participate in our process. So next slide. So we do have an online comment portal. These links are also in the public notice. There also is a link on the webpage. But just so you know, you can submit comments through the online portal. You don't have to submit them tonight. The public comment period closes on May 23rd at 5 p.m. Pacific time. You can, like I said, you can snail mail. I get comments in all ways. So you can snail mail them to me in a letter. You can email me. You can put them in the public comment portal. Any public comments we receive will become public. So if I get it through an email or snail mail, I'm going to scan it and upload it to the comment portal. So there's no secret commenting. So just be aware. But anyways, this is one way that you can comment. A lot of people have been taking advantage of it lately because it's very convenient and it's pretty self-explanatory on how to use it. Next slide. And then this is my personal contact information for work. Again, more information. Also, we have Erica at the back. She's our comms person, and she's really here to help people sign up for our Click Dimensions email system. So we have an electronic notification system. So if you're interested in this or any other or all FSEC projects, you can sign up to get email notifications in your inbox when anything changes or something gets posted to the website, or we issue a notice or something that would trigger a click D notice, we'll send it out that way. So again, lots of ways to get a hold of us. Next comment or next slide. So, and now we're here at the public comment portion. So I guess like what I wanted to say for those in the room, if there's anybody in the room that wants to comment, we do ask that you fill out one of the comment cards that's on the back table. And I'm going to turn it over to Nancy because Nancy runs the public comment part of our meeting. So thank you.
All right, well, at this point, no one has turned in a comment sheet. Just going to double check with all of you. Anybody want to make a comment in the room? Okay. I will check online. Hold on a moment. So if you are listening to this webinar online, whoops, let me move that out of the way. In order to make a comment tonight, to raise your hand, you're going to click on the icons. Let me move this out of your way first. You're going to click on the bottom of the main window. There's a set of icons. You're going to click on the participant, and then a hand icon will come up and you can click on that. That will raise your hand and we will call on you to make your comment. You'll click it again to lower it when you're finished commenting. If you are on the phone, you're going to press *3 on your keypad to raise your hand and then *3 again to lower your hand when you are finished commenting. So let's see. All right, well, we don't have anyone with their hand up right now. We'll give you another minute or so and see if we get any comments. No pressure. All right, last call for any comments. I think you're good.
All right. It appears we have no commenters on the WebEx, on the phone, or in the room.
Yep.
Okay. Then I don't know if there's any more slides.
No, I think that's good.
Okay. Oh, it's just
There's-
me again. And that's a wrap. That's our meeting. I just want to thank everybody for coming. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask. You know, we're here, and so is the applicant team. But thank you very much for coming tonight. Good night.